I think it's quite inspirational looking at these campaigns. Yes, there's still a long way to go, but it's inspirational looking at the kind of successes that these young people have had. So hello, my name's Sirriyeh. I teach here in sociology, and I do research on migration with a particular focus on the experiences of refugees and young people. And I also teach a bit on that topic as well. So my research connects a lot with the themes of uncertainty, as you may imagine. But I thought I'd particularly focus today on the experiences of refugee young people in education, because of a lot of the discussions that we're having at the moment about school closures and about disruption to education. I thought this theme seemed particularly relevant. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to try and show you hopefully some slides of pictures taken by refugee young people themselves, to kind of reflect on some of the themes they spoke about in research with me about their experiences of living in the UK. Before we get going, I'm going to say a little bit about who refugee young people are. So you might have differing levels of knowledge about this topic. So when we're talking about refugee young people, these are young people who've arrived in the UK because they faced persecution or they've lived through conflict in their countries of origin. So they may have experienced war, they may have experienced political persecution or persecution because of their particular ethnicity or religious identity. And then when they've arrived in the UK, they've either arrived here with their parents or their carers, or they may have actually arrived here on their own. So young people do travel to the UK on their own. It's a very difficult and arduous journey. That you sometimes see young people as young as 9 or 10 making these journeys, but generally most of the young people in this situation are aged between about 14 and 17. And they tend to come from a number of different countries, and it varies year to year depending on what's going on in the world. So at the moment, a lot of young people are from Eritrea, from Iran, from Afghanistan in particular, but it changes year on year. So thinking particularly about their experiences of education. So these photographs that I'm going to show you are, we use a method called photo voice, which you'll learn about methods like this if you come to Lancaster, if you do research methods courses with us. And here we ask young people to take photographs of things that made them think about home, or the themes of home and belonging. And a lot of young people took pictures of their classrooms and obviously of their friends and social settings as well within the school, but we can't sort of show you lots of pictures of people. But the reason why a lot of their pictures focused on education was because this was a really, really important element of their life. And a lot of young people said that this was particularly important to them because it was a way, amidst all the kind of turmoil that they've been through, it's a way in which they can kind of recover a more ordinary everyday kind of rhythm of life. So they spoke about the importance of this, particularly in the context of having had disrupted education experiences, the importance of being able to return to education, of being able to be around their peer group again, and kind of live as young people again, because often they've had to make very adult decisions in their countries of origin and on their journeys here. So it was really, really important for those reasons. Also, it was important because sorry, I'm just having a little trouble trying to flick through the slide. I'm trying to show you the next picture here. There it is, there's a bit of a delay. So it was really important also because of the kind of restrictions that they face in the asylum process. So here, a young woman that we called Ella in a study took a picture describing the kind of restrictions that she feels living through the asylum system in the UK. There's a lot of restrictions on where you can live, on the kind of things that you can do. So a lot of what they discussed in the research was the importance of being able to have some kind of element of control in their life, even in very, very sort of small, seemingly quite mundane ways. So, for example, on the right, you should see a picture of a vase of flowers. This was one of the young women, Jasmine, talking about how even being able to just decorate her home in the way that she wanted to make it sort of bright and cheerful for her was really, really important. So thinking about education is amidst all these other parts of their life which they have very little control of, education was a way in which they could say, look, one thing I can do is I can, decide to, take an interest in my studies, to look to study things that I would like to know more about, to work hard and really do the best I can for setting things up, hopefully, for the future. So it was really, really important area for them. However, another kind, you think sort of they've come to the UK, things are more settled now. However, another kind of area of uncertainty also arises when these young people reach the age of 18. So this photo is a little bit blurry, but this was taken by a young woman talking about how, becoming 18 is normally a time of celebration. And often, people have birthday parties, really celebrate this milestone in their life. But for a lot of young people who are here to seek asylum, becoming 18 can also be another period of uncertainty, because if they haven't had a decision on their asylum claim, so when they've arrived here, they've applied for asylum, they've asked for protection and to be allowed to stay in the UK, but they may not have yet had a decision on that claim. And if they haven't had a decision, it means it can be very difficult for them to then try to go to university. So if they haven't had refugee status, if they've not been given refugee status yet, they may still be treated as international students. So given the kind of difficult position that they're in, often living in effectively in destitution, being labelled as an international student or being categorised as an international student is very, very difficult, because they're very unlikely to be able to afford the fees to be able to go to university. It may mean, even more broadly speaking, not knowing whether you're going to be allowed to stay in the UK or not means that you also don't know where you're planning your future. Are you planning for a future and a career and everything else in the UK, or do you need to be preparing to go back to your country of origin? And so this is all a lot of uncertainty, a lot of kind of questions that they are facing in this period. But this can, obviously this can sound pretty negative, but I just wanted to finish by thinking again how are young people responding to this situation by just letting you know about a couple of campaigns that young people have been involved with to try to kind of address some of this uncertainty that they're facing, particularly at the age of 18. And I think this last slide is probably not going to flip to show you, but I can just tell you the campaigns that I wanted to really talk about were by other young people who are also in this position of facing insecure immigration status, and so these are young people who, for various reasons, have had been given temporary immigration statuses and are facing a lot of challenges with being asked to pay international fees. So there's young people in the US who have been labelled as the Dreamers, who have been campaigning for greater access to education, and with some success as well, being able to say that they qualify for they should be regarded as home students because they have lived in the US for such a long time, because they contribute to that society, because they are innocent young people. They kind of frame it very much through this narrative of young people. And also in the UK as well, though more recently established, we've also seen young people from a group called We Belong also having some degree of success in campaigning as well for easing some of the restrictions to accessing university for young people. And again, they have managed to say that actually, because they've lived here for such a long period of time, that they should be able to qualify as home students. So I think it's quite inspirational looking at these campaigns. Yes, there's still a long way to go, but it's inspirational looking at the kind of successes that these young people have had in campaigning under really, really difficult circumstances, to kind of just widen that niche a little bit in terms of being able to kind of widen access to universities. So I think I'll finish there. I think I'm still within my 10 minutes. So yeah, in terms of control, and I think it was kind of too much really to get into in a kind of very short presentation. So there's a lot of limitations on the kind of issues that they might be able to have control over when they're going through the asylum process, because immigration cases are kind of notoriously complex, and you spend a lot of time sort of waiting for decisions, waiting for the next date that you're going to be interviewed or being in court and so on. And it can feel that it is very much very sort of not in their hands what happens in terms of the immigration case. But it also kind of feeds into more kind of ordinary aspects of their lives. So while they're waiting for these decisions, they don't have any, they, in terms of where they can live, in terms of their housing, they're allocated housing, they're told which part of the country you're going to live in. So even in very sort of everyday ways, there's very little possibilities for control in many of the ways that lots of us might do in our own lives. But one area where they've said they do have control over is kind of what they're studying at school, how they engage with their work at school. So often this becomes kind of a real kind of central point of their life as well. And I think there was another part of the question also about eating disorders, and I don't know specifically about eating disorders, but there is a lot of research that shows kind of a high prevalence of difficulties with mental health and emotional well-being because of both because of kind of what young people have been through in their countries of origin in terms of kind of war and conflict and so on, but also because of this sitting with uncertainty, waiting, not knowing what the future holds in the UK. So there's a lot of research, and in fact probably it's one of the biggest areas of research in this field, showing the kind of high prevalence of difficulties with mental health. But I don't know specifically about eating disorders, but it'd be interesting to find out a bit more about that.